promoting dialogue.
It's midday in Dakar, 1 p.m. in Abuja. Good afternoon, and many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world on WADR.org. Welcome to Newslink. Here are the top stories. The military leaders of Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso to meet on July 6 for the first time since the creation of the Alliance of Sahel States. ECOWAS laments setbacks in implementation of developmental goals due to associated problems of political instability, terrorism, and climate change.
We have an opportunity through the current challenges to emerge stronger and better by working together for the shared prosperity we all aspire to attain.
President Bassirou Diomaye Faye of Senegal receives the final report on the National Dialogue on Judiciary.
Justice is a fundamental pillar of the rule of law. The need for reform and modernization is largely reflected in your work. This reinforces our determination to adapt our legal framework by correcting its imperfections and shortcomings.
The Liberian Civil Service Agency discovers over 687 ghost workers from 4 government institutions. Please stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
Here is Abdullahi Hassan with Newslink.
Many thanks for joining our broadcast and a warm welcome to our listeners in Gambia, Ghana, Liberia, and Sierra Leone. The Alliance for Sahel State AES countries are holding their first summit on Saturday, July 6 in Niger. The heads of the military regimes of Mali, Colonel Assimi Goïta, and Burkina Faso, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, are expected in the Nigerian capital today, Friday. The historic summit will mark the official activation of the AES, regional organization created by the 3 countries to pool their efforts to combat insecurity and promote socio-economic development in the Sahel region. Tisu has more on the following report.
The summit will be the first since the creation of the Alliance of Sahel States AES on September 16, 2023. The announcement was made on public radio by the state of Niger. Burkina Faso's head of state, Captain Ibrahim Traoré, and Colonel Assimi Goïta, Mali's transitional president, are expected in Niamey Friday. They will be welcomed by General Abdourahmane Tiani, president of the CNSP. Last May, the foreign ministers of Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger finalized in Niamey a draft text creating a confederation with the heads of state are due to adopt at Saturday's summit. This meeting will take place on the eve of a summit of the Economic Committee of West African States ECOWAS, from which the 3 Sahelian countries announced their withdrawal in January and which is calling for their reintegration. The Alliance of Sahel States AES, also known as Leptako Goma, is a mutual defense pact between Mali, Niger, and Burkina Faso. The agreement was signed following the coup d'etat in Niger on July 26, 2023, against which ECOWAS threatened military intervention. These 3 countries, all of which face deadly jihadist violence, also wish to create a common currency.
Tisu filed that report. In some news about the regional bloc, ECOWAS President Dr. Omar Aliou Touré says the developmental goals of the sub-regional powerhouse are increasingly being questioned due to the persistent problems of the community. He says persistent crises like food insecurity, inflation, and terrorism, among others, pose numerous questions about the objectives as a community.
The developmental goal of our integration is increasingly being questioned. With the current dire crisis of food insecurity, inflation, violent extremism, and terrorism, forced displacement, youth bulge, and unemployment, to name just a few. It is becoming increasingly evident that we need to further pool our resources and pursue collective self-reliance for the benefit of our populations. This is only possible if we agree to establish common positions and objectives with minimum points of cooperation to deal with the current challenges and commit strongly to realizing them. This is not the time to work at cross purposes. We need to work in unity and solidarity. The special summit, the summit will hopefully lead to a minimum convergence and expectations of the behavior of each member state of the community on matters affecting the entire community. ECOWAS is rated well in our continent. We have an opportunity through the current challenges to emerge stronger and better by working together for the shared prosperity we all aspire to attain. We have an action plan against terrorism which should have expired this year. The bold decision to finance this plan with our own resources has largely not been realized, although some initial strong commitments were recorded from the bulk contribution UM1, Nigeria and Ghana.
Dr. Omar Aliyu Ture is president of the ECOWAS Commission. Meanwhile, the ECOWAS Parliament has advised against the regional body playing any major role in the formation of a special tribunal for the Gambia to prosecute human rights violations committed from July 1994 to January 2017 during the Jammeh regime. This, it explained, is because ECOWAS should not be interfering in the international affairs of the country, adding it cannot be a referee and a player at the same time. It also said it has an agreement together with the UN and the EU leading to Jammeh's exit, which prevents ECOWAS from playing any role in what could be Jammeh and his allies' prosecution. Former president of the Gambia Bar Association, Saliu Tal, is a leading proponent of the proposed hybrid international court. He began by expressing his feelings about the ECOWAS Parliament's decision.
So first and foremost, it is important to make it very clear that the ECOWAS Parliament does not have legislative powers. They're just advising on whether or not they think this court should be established. And in their wisdom, they give unfavorable opinion, advisory opinion. That is, in their view, that Gambia can go ahead and establish a special tribunal, but they don't see any role for ECOWAS and canvass reasons for it. I'm definitely disappointed because what do you tell the victims of the atrocities committed by the former regime? What do you tell the 50 Ghanaians who were callously murdered? Mm-hmm. What do you tell the Ghanaian men and children who were raped? Mm-hmm. What do you tell people whose parents were need to disappear? That it's not ECOWAS business, that Gambia should be left on its own. When Gambia cannot legally do those things. Gambia has limitations. And those limitations were actually created by the former regime. So Gambia is running to ECOWAS to be able to set up an accountability mechanism. Gambia is not asking for ECOWAS to fund this court. We're just asking ECOWAS to support this court. So I really baffles me that our community members of parliament are of the view that the Gambia's accountability problems is not their problem. It's our domestic problem.
What next for the Gambia now that the parliament decided to take this draft decision? So what are the possible options for the Gambia?
I don't want to speak for the government of the Gambia. And I think there is a need to really engage the ECOWAS institutions so that they can understand what Gambia is trying to do. Because what Gambia is trying to do is not about Gambia. It's good for the entire sub-region. Yeah. ECOWAS does not have any transitional justice mechanism. This is the first time in ECOWAS that ECOWAS is involving in transitional justice. We've seen what's happening in the region. We have all these attempts at unconstitutional change of government in the sub-region, which ECOWAS takes very strongly. And at the center of all these issues is injustice. And transitional justice allows the restoration of justice and rule of institutions. It will only build a culture of constitutionalism in the sub-region. So I think ECOWAS, all institutions should really support Gambia in its attempt to set up the first international criminal law accountability mechanism that is West Africa owned and pushed by the Gambia for the benefit of Gambia and West Africa.
That was Saliu Tal, former president of the Gambia Bar Association.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Remember, we are live on WADR.org and on Facebook at WADR English Service. Here in Senegal, President Bassirou Diomaye Faye has received the final report of the Conference on Justice Reform held in June on Thursday. President Faye made it clear that he is totally neutral with regard to the Superior Council of the Judiciary. The presence of the head of state on the Superior Council of the Judiciary has always been the subject of debate in the country. Actors in the Senegalese justice system and legal specialists believe that the fact that he heads the body is a threat to the independence of the judiciary. The chairman reassured the audience that all the conclusions contained in the report will be implemented as soon as possible. The Senegalese president invited Professor Babacar Gueye, who chaired the Justice Conference, to initiate the preliminary steps for reforms concerning the Constitutional Council, the Liberty Judge, long pre-trial detentions, and other issues.
À la fois institution, pouvoir et service, la justice est un pilier fondamental de l'état de droit.
At the same time, justice is a fundamental pillar of the rule of law. The need for reform and modernization is largely reflected in your work. This reinforces our determination to adapt our legal framework by correcting its imperfections and shortcomings. In this respect, the reforms of the Superior Council of the Penal Code and the Code of Criminal Procedure, in order to eliminate abusive and arbitrary provisions, will be at the heart of my concerns. I am totally neutral with regard to the Conseil Supérieur de la Magistrature, and I am not obsessed with it. To achieve these results, I invite all stakeholders to support the efforts of the government, which alone cannot bring about the significant changes expected by our people.
President Bassirou Diomaye Faye of Senegal speaking there. In Liberia, the government, through the Civil Service Agency, has announced the discovery of over 687 ghost workers from 4 government institutions. This action is expected to save the government an estimated $2.6 million United States dollars, as you'll hear in this report by WEDR's Darlington Popper.
Since coming to power in January 2024, the Joseph Boakai administration has embarked on a campaign to remove ghosts from the public service. Appearing at the Ministry of Information's Thursday's press conference, Civil Service Agency Director General Josiah Jokai said the payroll cleaning exercise will enhance financial integrity and efficiency within the public service.
At the Liberia Institute of Public Administration, 28 employees were dismissed for not showing up to work for 14 to 20 days for each of the 3 months covered. We suspended 30 employees without pay for not showing up to work for 8 to 12 consecutive days. At the National Center for the Coordination of Response Mechanism, the Civil Service Agency found no evidence of 12 individuals to be in the employ of the entity.
Responding during the conference, President Joseph Boakai appreciated the Civil Service Agency for embarking on a payroll cleaning up exercise, stressing that it is a shame that Liberia is underdeveloped due to widespread public corruption.
We know that racism will always be here. Should we always be stuck in the mud? So I just want to say to those people who think nobody's fighting anybody, but we don't do it, nobody will do it for us. You can't be depending on resources of other countries, take their taxpayers' money to kind of take care of you.
The payroll cleaning up exercise will continue throughout the coming weeks across other government entities, the Civil Service Agency has assured. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, I'm Darlington Popper in Monrovia.
Elsewhere, Ghana's Chief Justice Gertrude Tokono has come under criticism over her recent proposal for the president, Nana Akufo-Addo, to appoint 5 additional judges to the Supreme Court. The proposal, if accepted, will increase the number of justices on the bench of the Apex Court from 15 to 20. The Chief Justice argues the extra numbers will help cater for the growing workload the limited numbers of the bench of the Apex Court have to deal with. Here is a report by WEDR's Nadiri Tete.
According to Ghana's 1992 Constitution, specifically Article 144, Clause 2, justices of the Supreme Court are appointed on the advice of the Judicial Council in consultation with the Council of State and with the approval of Parliament. Thus, some private legal practitioners found it concerning that the Lady Chief Justice Gertrude Tokono was making such a proposal without going through the Judicial Council as stated in law. Justice Abdullahi is one of such lawyers.
I would like to see that as a proposal, and that is how the letter on social media actually suggests that it's a proposal from the CJ's office to the president. It is a bit of a misnomer to me. It's a misnomer. It's a complete departure from what we are used to. I've read the social media report and I've seen the authorities cited by that letter, and I'm still not convinced that it's the appropriate thing to do.
A former director of the Ghana School of Law, Ansar Asare, also says the basis of the request for additional justices at the Supreme Court by the Chief Justice is not enough.
I don't think the reasons assigned by the Lord Chief Justice are convincing.
Meanwhile, the largest opposition political party in the country, the National Democratic Congress, NDC, has described the proposal by the Chief Justice, Gertrude Tokonu, for the appointment of 5 new Supreme Court justices as an attempt to undermine the country's democracy. The party claims that the move seeks to compromise the principle of checks and balances, which is crucial for a functioning democracy.
We are concerned about a worrying pattern which irresistibly suggests that the president is appointing only loyalists of his party to this court to have control of the judiciary and escape post-regime accountability.
For WADR, Nadidi Tete, Accra.
You are listening to Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM in Dakar, Senegal. Here's a reminder of our top stories. The military leaders of Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso to meet on July 6 for the first time since the creation of the Alliance of Sahel States AES. ECOWAS laments setbacks in implementation of developmental goals due to associated problems of political instability, terrorism, and climate change. President Bassirou Diomaye Faye of Senegal receives the final report on the National Dialogue on Justice Reform. The Liberian Civil Service Agency discovers over 687 ghost workers from 4 government institutions. Still ahead in the news, we have the guest interview and sports update. Please stay with us.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks, only on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Many thanks for staying with us. Let's take you to Nigeria, where the surge in the use of point-of-sale POS machines has transformed the nation's economy payment landscape with over 1.8 million machines in use and a transaction value of over 41 trillion naira in 2022 alone. The shift has led to a decline in the use of automated teller machines or ATMs as Nigerians increasingly opt for the convenience and flexibility offered by POS machines. WADR's Usman Umar in Abuja has more in this report.
1, because the closeness to you, that was 1. 2, it's not more stressful as bank.
I think POS is more better in terms of network and other things and the charges.
Those are some POS users I caught up with in parts of Abuja, Nigeria's capital. According to industry experts, the popularity of POS machines can be attributed to their widespread availability, ease of use, and security features. Bayonle Omoyele, a financial expert, details some more reasons for the rise in the choice of POS machines.
Why Nigerians consider using POS system more than the normal conventional ATM? There are lots of factors. Now let's talk of the accessibility. Okay, the convenience is there. The total number of ATMs we have in this country is 22,600, and these 22,600 ATMs is 70% owned by 7 commercial banks. So the scarcity of ATMs is there.
POS operators also report a significant increase in transactions, with many Nigerians preferring to use POS machines for their daily transactions. Ezekiel Smart, a POS operator, explains.
We have a platform which once you just make a complaint, they can just reply with an immediate effect. Like we have active customer cares that are online, that are on the platform. So once an agent make a complaint, they answer us very fast than going to the bank.
Available data from the Nigeria Bureau of Statistics supports this trend, with POS machines processing over 41 trillion naira, about 27 million United States dollars in transactions in 2022, a significant increase from previous years. As the use of POS machines continues to grow, it's clear that they are becoming the preferred mode of transaction for many Nigerians. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, Usman Umar reporting from Abuja.
Politics,
analysis on major news,
social matters, and all. This is a guest.
Ahead of the upcoming meeting of ECOWAS heads of state and government on Sunday in Abuja, Nigeria, civil society organizations within the West African sub-region under the West Africa Democracy Solidarity Network, WADEMOS, and partners are calling on the regional bloc to standardize a term limit as well as expedite action to bring back Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger to the community, among other recommendations. The groups made these recommendations during a media briefing to announce their stance and recommendations to the authority of heads of state and government. Paul Osai Kufo is the network coordinator and manager of WADEMOS.
The resolutions are 4 in number. The first one is to get ECOWAS to standardize term limits and to also draw lessons from the situation that we had in Togo recently. You recall that there's been a constitutional reform that a lot of citizens and West African activists think that the process was very unconstitutional and was undemocratic, and it received a lot of resentment from the citizenry. So we are calling on ECOWAS to open negotiations and discussions with the government of Togo to reconsider the referendum that took place. Secondly, also learning from the Togo experience, we expect ECOWAS to begin to also reflect further the reform of the protocol on democracy and good governance, particularly on standardizing presidential term limit, because there is a new norm that we are learning from Togo, where now the term limit is still with the president, but the one who has overriding powers in their current constitution, which will be the president of the Council of Ministers, has no term limit. The president who will be elected will just be ceremonial. So if this trend is not curtailed in this formative period, there's a likelihood that this will become the new norm to further worsen the deteriorating condition that we have in the sub-region. The second one has to do with the situation in the Sahel. And particularly, we are concerned with the exit of the 3 countries, Burkina Faso, Mali, and Guinea, from ECOWAS. And then the human rights conditions that we have in the Sahel as a result of the activities of insecurity and violent extremists. It's also causing further deterioration in the sub-region. And our position is that ECOWAS must show leadership. We are happy to note that they plan to repurpose the ECOWAS standby force as the main agency or the main strategy to push back activities of terrorists and to counter terrorism in the sub-region. And then the final one has to do with the issue of some progressive steps that we've seen taken by ECOWAS that we want to encourage them to consolidate that. One is the planned formation of ECOWAS, because the whole ECOWAS is about ECOWAS of citizens, but citizens do not have a voice. So the planned formation of the ECOSOC West Africa should be prime consideration to the heads of states and government going into the meeting on Sunday for the 65th summit, that they should give their support to the formation of the ECOSOC and get it operationalized to get West African citizens' voice integrated and mainstream in the affairs of the regional body. So these are some of the considerations that, as a consultative platform and civic forum, we wanted to appeal to the authority of heads of states and governments to reflect further and include it into their deliberation.
That was Paul Osai Kufo, network coordinator for the West Africa Democracy Solidarity Network, WADEMOS. Here is sports news with Sam Kulejanko.
Hello out there, a warm welcome and thank you for joining us. Tough draw for the African Cup of Nations record holders Egypt, while Cote d'Ivoire and host Morocco also discover CAF Africa Cup of Nations Morocco 2025 qualifiers opponents. Egypt, the most successful nation in the history of the CAF Africa Cup of Nations, has been drawn in what many believe is the most difficult group, including the CAF Africa Cup of Nations Morocco 2025 qualifiers draw in Johannesburg, South Africa on Thursday. The fellows who have won the AFCON 7 times will play two unformed teams, Cape Verde and Mauritania, as well as Botswana in Group C. Cote d'Ivoire, led by coach Emans Faye, a man who made a name for himself for rescuing Cote d'Ivoire on the brink of elimination at the previous competition, was amongst the draw assistants together with Moroccan legend Marwan Shamak. Cote d'Ivoire have been drawn in Group G alongside former champions Zambia, Sierra Leone and Chad. The Elephants are eager to defend their title after their thrilling 2-1 victory over Nigeria in the previous final held in Abidjan earlier this year. Host Morocco plays in Group B will face Gabon, Central African Republic and Lesotho. The 2021 AFCON champions Senegal have been drawn in Group L, while the Super Eagles of Nigeria will battle for a place in the finals in Group D. The qualifiers will commence in September 2024 and conclude in November 2024. The first and second place teams from each of the 11 groups, excluding Group B, where Morocco competes, will earn their spots in the tournament. The much anticipated CAF Africa Cup of Nations will be held from 21 December 2025 to 18 January 2026 in Morocco, promising a spectacular show of African football talent. And that's it for sports. It's back to you.
Sponsors brought to you by Sankule Janko. And with that, we've come to the end of this edition of Newslink here on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Mustafa Sek and Maojo Juve for the technical assistance. Do interact with us via social media platforms X, formerly Twitter, Instagram at WADR News, and on Facebook, WADR English Service. Do join Esuli Jeju at the top of the hour of 1 p.m. for a second edition of our comprehensive news package in French Info Chez Vous. I'm Abdullahi Hassan. Good afternoon.
And many